Ka'alau Yahawashi Yahawashi Hashem, Rakachadash, all praise, honor, and glory go to the Most High Yahweh in the name of His Son Yahawashi. And I wanted to come with a lesson from the book of Ezekiel 13, and I'm gonna start in verse 3. This is if you go over to the NLT, and I'll probably read some from the NLT as well. It gives you the headline of it. Well-known scripture throughout Israel says, "Judgment against false prophets." And I posed the question, what makes a prophet false? And that's probably gonna be the title of my lesson. The word of the Lord comes out to Yahweh, speaks to his prophet Ezekiel, and he's giving a warning against those that bring out things in his truth for their own gain, for their own self indulgence, for their own filthy lucre, to gain fame, to be looked at as someone that's should be respected, yet either their ways don't match what they're saying, or they're preaching a message that is totally off away from the scriptures. And it reminds you of what's going on right now. It's been going on the whole time since the truth has been out. As we get closer and closer, we tend to forget the laboring that the apostles and elders did before us, and they had to experience all these things, and they're experiencing these things over and over again. That's why they're so quick to jump on and defend the gospel, defend these scriptures. I'm gonna read this in the NLT, then I'm gonna go back to the KJV and maybe get some precepts from the other versions. But in verse 3, it says, "This is what the sovereign Yahweh says." It says, "What sorrow awaits the false prophets who are following their own imaginations and have seen nothing at all." It says, "O people of Yasharallah, these prophets of yours are like jackals digging in the ruins." When it goes into jackals and foxes, it's talking about being, crafty and sly, which resembles the so-called white man, the nation of Edom, and the spiritual demon Shaitan, Satan. It says, "They have done nothing to repair the breaks in the walls around the nation. They have not helped it to stand firm in the battle on the day of Yahweh." It said, "Instead, they have told lies and made false predictions. They say this message is from Yahweh, even though Yahweh never sent them, and yet they expect him to fulfill their prophecies." It says, "Can your visions be anything but false if you claim this message is from Yahweh when I have not even spoken to you?" It says, "Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says, because what you say is false and your visions are a lie, I will stand against you, says the sovereign Lord. I will raise my fist against all the prophets who see false visions and make lying predictions, and they will be banished from the community of Yasharallah. I will blot their names from Yasharallah's record books, and they will never again set foot in their own land. Then you will know that I am the sovereign Yahweh." And go back to the KJV, we'll start getting some precepts about this. But yeah, this is what's been going on for this whole awakening. It comes in increments. If you do your research in the history of start from Abu Bivens on down to One West, on down to GMS. The House of David, then GMS, and to where we're at right now. And it's very alarming, because we're getting down to the final moments, and these prophets still want to continue to bring out these these false prophets still continue to want to bring out these fallacies and these topics that really have nothing to do with your salvation. And when you go over to the book of Genesis 32:19, it says, "Then thou shalt say, thy servant Jacob, it is a present sent unto my lord Esau, and behold, also he is behind us." And I bring that out because Jacob was also known as being cunning and being a supplanter, but he was always in touch with the Lord with it. Whenever he when he had the Jacob's ladder dream, when he supplanted Esau, or so-called subplanet Esau, and he was dealing with Laban, it was always in the name of the Lord. It was always because the Lord was working with them. But these prophets these days, they're giving up on the Lord. These false prophets are doing things such as saying the books aren't the books of the scriptures. They're doing things like saying Paul's writings are not part of the scriptures. They're doing things such as adding on to their own visions of what they think is going to happen. And some of the things could be sincerity in their heart. They really see this, but most times just because they just want to keep people coming to their channels. In Deuteronomy 4:3 says, "Your eyes have seen what Yahweh did because of Baal Peor. For all the men that follow Baal Peor, Yahweh thy power have destroyed them from among you." And if you do your research as well in your history, you'll see that a lot of the men that went against the men of the Lord, the ones that didn't stick to the scriptures, the ones that didn't do it in sincerity and heart, the Lord slowly but surely removed them. And it's happening again where he's removing some of the camp leaders and also some of these break off factions and camps that are going away from the true teachings of the scriptures. Go over to Colossians 2:18. It says, "Let no man beguile you of your reward in a voluntary humility and worshiping of angels, intruding unto these things which he hath not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind." And when we're dealing with these false prophets that are bringing these things out, you can clearly see their vanity, because they're doing things such as continue to wear hats. They're bringing out props, horses, riding on horses, bringing out swords. A lot of them are continuing just to feed towards our women, the women's mindset, such as dressing a certain way, wearing these fringe t-shirts still. It's just straight vanity, straight fleshly. It's all designed just to catch the eye of a nigga, because niggas love things like that. Women love flashy things as well. So niggas and women, they love these flashy and things that catch the eye, but they have nothing to really do with the scriptures, and the Lord has not sent them. If you go over to Psalms 106:23, it says, "Therefore he said that he would destroy them, had not Mashah his chosen stood before him in the breach to turn away his wrath, lest he should destroy them." And when the men of the Lord come out and they warn these false prophets and these other camps from divvying off from the scriptures, or coming up with their own analogies, that's like Moses, trying to stand in the way of the Lord's, trying to plead for, the Israelites that are going off, and the Lord, having mercy on them, so to continue to let them maybe have some time to repent. But as you see, most of them don't. They continue just to go deeper and deeper into their own pit, instead of just coming to the understanding that probably was never given to them, because the Spirit is not working with them. You go to Ezekiel 22:30, says, "And I sought for a man among them that shall make up the hedge and stand in the gap before me for the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found none." And it's getting harder and harder to be able to find a man of the Lord that sticks to these scriptures in sincerity and heart, and continues just to not look for the fame and the glory, because you got to see this thing that we're experiencing right now. This they call it now HBI, the BMI, BHIs, the Black Hebrew Israelites, which we're not black, but I'm just using their terminologies. You see it starting to gain a little fanfare. You see it starting to build up a little bit, and like every fad that's out here, you're gonna have a lot of false people that attach onto it. I was watching this one movie back in the day, and it's called The Temptation of Hamashiach, but they say Christ. And they basically painted Paul as a person that just jumped on into the scene and just realized that that this was going to be big, and that the Savior, the talk of the Savior was going to be big, and so he just went along with it and kind of created a whole false doctrine, which we know is not true. That's not the real Paul, but it just kind of shows you how these false prophets are using this truth right now. They know it's getting bigger. Go over to Psalms 80 and 12. It says, "Why hast thou then broken down her hedges, so that all that which pass by the way do pluck her?" And you know, it's becoming easier and easier for these Christians, these so-called white men, and anybody else to come and have something to say about it, because they don't know the difference between a man of the Lord that sticks to the scriptures, that says they're Israelite, and someone who just has on a fringe shirt that says they're Israelite. They don't really know, because they don't have discernment. So it's easy for them to come by and pluck at, and pick at the men of the Lord, not knowing what they're doing. But it's going to come a day when they start to realize that, hey, it is a separation in Israel if the Spirit is working with them, and they're part of the hopeful elect. In Isaiah 5 and 5, it says, "And now go to, I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away the hedge thereof, and it shall be eaten up, and break down the wall thereof, and it shall be trodden down." Because the only way that the Lord is going to be able to distinguish the men of the Lord and his holy elect is to tear down all Israel. So we are going to have to go through the distresses of Jacob's trouble, but there's going to be some that are not going to be able to rise back up. There's going to be some that are not going to be that are not going to be protected because they've done too much. They said too much. They went against the men of the Lord too many times, and their hedge is being broken, being torn down. If you go to Isaiah 58 and 12, it says, "And they that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt raise up the foundations of many generations, and thou shalt be called the repair of the breach, the reformer of paths to dwell in." And that's the men of the Lord. Starting with the men of the apostles of the Great Millstone. They're the ones that's really repairing and bringing Israel back together. And it's going at the Father's pace. Yahawashi is the head of it all right now. Yet we see the foundations being structured. We see that the strength that the men of the Lord have through these scriptures, and you can't move them. And that's the main thing. They're not changing up. If you go over to Amos 9:11, it says, "In that day I will raise up the tabernacle of Dawad that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof, and I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old." And that's the day that we're looking forward to, when Yahawashi returns back with his myriad of angels, and he comes down and he destroys this Babylonian nightmare that we're in America, along with that land over there in Israel, that the gutter rats are trodden down right now, and he puts the rest of the nations in subjection, and they see the fame of the Lord, and then the throne of David will be risen back up. And a lot of these Christians and a lot of these people who understand who David is, they hate it, because they realize when David was in power, all the other nations were in subjection, and everything was was righteous then, as far as the judgments. Yet no one wants the righteous judgment right now. Amos 4 and 3 says, "And you shall go out at the breaches, every cow at that which is before her, and you shall cast them into the palace, says Yahweh." And you go into that's going into more bringing everybody back with fish hooks, of his elect. The ones that are part of the hopeful elect, they may not know they're part of the hopeful elect yet. They might be tottering on some of these breakdowns and these understandings, but the elect will return back, and they will. It's like the other side. It's like on the other side. If you're destined to not be part of the elect, you're not going to be part of the elect. You're going to go off. If you are going to be a part of the elect, you're going to get this knowledge, and it may take some a little bit longer than others, but they will be pulled back into this truth to its full capacity. If you go to Ezekiel, I already read Ezekiel 22 and 30. I apologize, Salakia. Did I read 42 and 7? Ezekiel 42 and 7 says, "And the wall that was without over against the chambers toward the utter court of the forefront of the chambers, the length thereof was 50 cubits." And the Lord always uses building up the temple, building up the walls as a way to describe how he's building up Jake in these last moments, if you have a spiritual mindset. Going down to read all those. I'm going to go to Ezekiel 12 and 24. It says, for there shall be no more any vain vision nor flattering divination within the house of Yasharallah. We're getting to that point. And it's exciting to see. It's a beautiful thing to see, even though we have to go through all the trials and tribulations and experience the same Jacob's trouble that everybody's going to experience. Yet it says that those that are the men of the Lord, which I pray I'm a number of, you know, they'll be protected through all this. And there's going to come a time when all those different divinations and all those visions that they say they see and all these prophecies that they think they're bringing out that's on the left-hand side, only to say the so-called white man, or to try to lighten the blow that they're going to that Israel's going to receive. You know, you so-called African Americans, Native Americans, and Latinos, you know, that we're going to receive to try to lighten that blow. It's going to come a time when he's going to remove all that, and you're going to know who really is a man of the Lord. Ezekiel 21 and 29 says, while they see vanity unto thee, while they define a lie unto thee, to bring thee upon the necks of them that are slain of the wicked, whose day is come, when their iniquity shall have an end. And you know, the Lord is letting them do it. The Lord is letting them be out here and give out these false projections of what's going to happen, even though the breakdowns are already happening, even though the apostles and elders have already labored and brought out this truth, and it's been jumping off the pages. You know, he's going to let them go ahead and hang their own selves with their own desires of filthy lucre and vanity that they desire to have in this earth, because technically they don't want Yahawashi to come. What they really want is to stay here in America and hope that it gets better, and it's not going to get better. It's going to get destroyed. If you go over to Ezekiel 22 and 28, it says, and her prophets have daubed them with untempered mortar, seeing vanity and divining lies unto them, saying, thus says Yahawashi, when Yahweh have not spoken. Some of these men are going to know the name of the Lord. They're going to know Yahawashi is the name. They're going to know, some of the breakdowns. But since they don't have tempered mortar, you know, they have untempered mortar, it's not going to stick. It's not going to hold up their wall. In Jeremiah 5 and 31, it says, the prophets prophesy falsely, and the priests bear rule by their means, and my people love to have it so. And what will you do in the end thereof? Because, you know, Jake loves being a nigga. You know, they got to have nigga ways to be able to be so-called religious. You know, you got to, you know, dress nice, put on the hats, like put on the fringes, you know, have parties. You know, they love mirth. You know, our people love the nigga mirth that we built up, that so-called white man started, that we picked up on, and they got to have it that way. They got to have some kind of controversy. They got to have some kind of freak off. They got to have some kind of. I was watching the documentary of Aretha Franklin last night, and it was talking about her dad. You know, was a famous Baptist preacher, and you know, he had this saying, hey, you know, he loves Saturday nights and he loves Sunday mornings or something like that. Meaning, like, you know, they would be freaking out, smoking weed, getting drunk. You know, he was philandering with different women, even young preteen women. And on Sunday go out there and preach. And they said he had the golden voice, or the $1 million voice, because some of his lessons got carried over to time and time. People plagiarized them, and, you know, the white man so-called, you know, used some of it. But at the end of the day, you know, that's going off. You know, you got to be about this all the time. Yeah, read all those. Go on down to Jeremiah 14 and 14. It says, then Yahweh said unto me, the prophets prophesy lies in my name. I sent them not, neither have I commanded them, neither spoken to them. They prophesy unto you a false vision and divination, and thing to naught, and the deceit of their heart. You know, you find a prophet speaking about this place getting better. You find a man talking about this place is going to get better, or save the community, or, you know, Esau's okay. Hey, you can eat pork now. You know, hey, you know, you can wear your hair long. You know, hey, you know, all these different things that we have going on in Israel right now. You got to know that that's a prophecy of lies, and the Lord is not sending them, because the scriptures don't say anything like that. You know, The scriptures speak of destruction and doom. If you're not preaching destruction and doom in these last moments, in these last days, then you're not a true prophet of Yahawashi. I don't care if you know the name or not. In Psalms 119 and 49 says, remember the word unto thy servant upon which thou hast caused me to hope. You know, if you're not hoping on having hope to what's going to come when Yahawashi destroys this place and the kingdom getting started, if you're not in hopes of that type of salvation, and you're focused on just building up this land where it's at right now, knowing that you're seeing it crumble, then you're going off and you're not a prophet of the Lord, and you're going to have to face that judgment and the consequences of your own words that you're bringing out, because they're from your own vain heart. You got a couple more. This is Jeremiah 23 and 21. It says, I have not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. And you see a lot of you used to see, I mean, it's less and less now here, at least in California, Southern California. But that's why you used to see all them camps pop up with the French churches, and next thing you know, they're gone. They get a website, they get a page, next thing they're gone. You know, and those are the ones that run with it. You know, they hear something good, you know, because our people, you know, one thing about our people, you know, that I will give credit, you know, we do love to rise up and try to join together. It's just that sometimes, and most times, I'm sorry, throughout history, it's been for the wrong reasons. No one's doing it for the Lord. No one's doing it to bring glory to his holy name. No one's trying to stick to what these scriptures say. You know, and the ones that are, you can easily tell because they don't change up, and they stick to what the scriptures are bringing out, which is bringing doom and gloom to America and to 2/3 of our people, and also to the so-called white man. This is Jeremiah 21:13. It says, behold, I am against thee, O inhabitant of the valley. And that's the valley, already means judgment. And rock of the plain with Yahweh, which say, who shall come down against us, or who shall enter into our habitations? And that's going into the so-called white man, but also going into 2/3 of our people who think they can just know the name of the Lord, say what they want to say, not have any order, disregard the laboring that the prophets have done, the men of the Lord have done, and they're just doing their own thing. And I think that's about it. I just wanted to bring out some understanding on, you know, how you know who is a prophet. How do you know who's the true messengers of the Most High Yahweh? You got to do a lot of research in these days. Google is right there for you. But for those that are really discerned, for those that truly are working with the Rakakadash, the Holy Spirit, it's going to be plain as table once you really do your you know, study these things out, study to show yourself approved. You're going to see who the men of the Lord are. You're going to see who the men of the Lord are not, and you're going to see how everything is set up for the destruction of this place in these last moments of these last days. So you able-bodied man, as I always say, you know, Ka'alau Yabashim Yahawashi, you able-bodied man, continue just to do the work, you know, and continue to try to purify yourself through the scriptures. You know, doing the law to the best of your ability, but, you know, knowing that, you know, you only saved through the faith and the power of Yahawashi. You know, you only have, the only thing that can really save you and bring you salvation is faith in Yahawashi, you know. And, you know, we practice out these laws, you know, as just reverence of the Most High Yahweh, knowing that one day we'll be that way. But without Yahawashi, we're nothing. And you men that, you know, may not understand all the prophecies, you know, but know the name of Yahawashi, you know, your one main thing that you want to do is not scoff and mock. You know, you don't want to be one of those that hate against the men of the Lord in these last moments, because there's a judgment towards that. You know, you want to help out the men of the Lord as much as you can with encouragement, you know, time, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be money, you know, but if you're a giver, that's cool as well, you know. But the men of the Lord not asking you for anything, you know, but you know, if you are well off, you know, it would show as a blessing to you to you know, give off to those that are less fortunate of the household believers. You women, always know that Eve sinned first. Always know that she's the one that went off. Always know that, Shaitan, the spiritual demon Satan, and the so-called white man go towards our women first to try to get them to do away with the Israelite man. And that goes for all so-called African Americans, Native Americans, and Latinos. That's where they start. They're going to try to go against you first. So it behooves you to not fall into the cultures of this beast system. Get off these fashions. Get off the harlotry. Get off of trying to be independent, and go find yourself an Israelite man to get under, because pretty soon you're going to be forced to anyway. And you children continue with the name of Yahawashi, Yahawashi in your mouth. No matter what you hear throughout these days, you hear the name JC, God. No, his name is Yahweh. His name is Yahawashi. And with that, just want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, Bahashem, Rakak Kadash, double honors to all the apostles, elders, teachers, preachers, priests, bishops that came before me to taught me the truth through the videos, starting with the apostles and elders, the great millstone, who are the true prophets of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahawashi, who were taught by their apostles and elders before them. And Shalom, peace be to you, to his holy elect, which I pray I'm of the number of, to next time, Yahweh willing.